Round one of the NFL draft is in the books, and the Browns are one of 3 teams that did not make a pick. The Buffalo Bills traded out, and the Houston Texans were never in round one since they shipped their 23rd overall pick to the Minnesota Vikings a few weeks ago. So on this evening / this morning, depending on what time zone you're living in and when you're watching this video, I just want to run through the top remaining players that slipped out of round one. Now, I am filming this quite literally in the closet here at Chat Sports because we are at max capacity, and when you don't pick in round one, you're at the bottom of the totem pole. But I was not going to leave you guys hanging without a video. So let's run through my favorite players that slipped out of round one. I'll start with Illinois' defensive tackle, Jerzon Johnny Newton. This guy just screams Jim Schwartz. Interior defensive lineman that can generate a lot of pressure. The Browns have no issue with getting pressure from their defensive ends. Zadarius Smith was one of the best pressure leaders in the NFL last year. Myles Garrett quite literally bullied the Bengals and the Steelers into going offensive line because they're tired of seeing him twice a season on top of their quarterback. So there's another great way to generate pressure that quarterbacks hate. That is up the middle. That is where Jerzon Johnny Newton is an expert. I mean, I was a little surprised he did not go round one. He led the FBS in pressures from interior defensive linemen the last 2 seasons from Illinois. So that's one name. I don't see a world where he falls to 54. If he does, I'll run the pick in from Cleveland to Detroit. Another guy that I did not think would slip out of round one was Iowa's Cooper DeJean. Now, does the Browns need a corner? Not really. They didn't need one when they took Martin Emerson, so I won't put it past Andrew Berry. I don't think we see Cooper DeJean slip out of the 30s, but maybe Newton and DeJean are players that the Browns would be willing to trade up for because they did not see a world where these guys did not go round one. Another DB is Kool-Aid McKinstry. I always felt like he was right there on the edge of round one or round two. Ultimately, he slips out of round number one. Again, same thing with DeJean. The Browns need a corner. Unless they don't have a really good feeling about Greg Newsome long term, that's probably not the direction they go. Another defensive tackle that I didn't think would have a really good chance of going round one, but you never quite know because it's really tough and really important to find interior defensive linemen that can generate pressure, is Florida State's Braden Fisk. Now, I think he's very much in play at pick 54. I don't think him falling out of round one is raising many eyebrows across the league, if any. But if the Browns really want to attack in the trenches, Braden Fisk, if they miss out on Jerzon Johnny Newton from Illinois, he could be a consolation prize. The next guy is Ladd McConkey. He's definitely a tweener between end of round one, early round two, and we know which side he's going to land on. I've got a gut feeling that the Browns are not going wide receiver at 54 unless a Ladd McConkey falls to them. Someone that just makes them tear up whatever their plan was and go take the guy highest on their big board, which I think Ladd McConkey could be at that spot if he's still available at 54. Again, when the Browns trade for Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, and Andrew Berry drafts Cedric Tillman and David Bell, 5 wide receivers Andrew Berry himself traded for or drafted, to me that says Andrew Berry likes the room he made and he wants to see that room pan out. That's why I don't think they go wide receiver at 54. Plus, it doesn't mean they don't go wide receiver, period. I just think they may wait till round 3 because it's a very deep wide receiver class. And then I've got to toss in another wide receiver, A.D. Mitchell. I thought he was a Chief. I think during the draft he was in Kansas City looking for a house. And then they went with his teammate, Xavier Worthy, which, quick sidebar, what was Buffalo thinking? They play the Chiefs every year in the postseason, and they signed off and aided a trade to help their biggest rival, the Kansas City Chiefs, and giving Patrick Mahomes another really shiny toy to work with and the fastest guy on the field. Don't understand what Buffalo is thinking. The only defense I can give them is if they knew that no one between themselves and the Chiefs at 32 were going to go wide receiver. So they figured we might as well take a 3rd-round pick away from the Chiefs. That's one less thing they have to work with. And then the other guy I just want to plug really quickly is Edgerrin Cooper. No one expect him to go round 1, so that he doesn't really fall in the bucket of like guys who slipped out of round 1. He's in the camp of round 2, round 3 targets for the Browns. We'll see if Cleveland's serious about going linebacker early in the draft. They haven't picked a linebacker since Tony Fields, like in terms of like chronological order. They went Tony Fields and JOK a few years back, but Jacob Phillips is gone. Like they need to reset at that position. This is not a very deep linebacker class. So if they are serious about going linebacker, well, sooner rather than later would be the most logical thing to do for that position. So Amari Cooper, the Texas A&M linebacker, he's the number 1 linebacker in this year's draft, according to my big board. So according to me, I guess that could be a spot where the Browns go, all right, we want to go linebacker. Andrew Berry never tends to reach, so I'd be a little surprised if he did reach on a guy he doesn't think is better than 3 to 4 other players still remaining. But if they just decide it's linebacker or bust, then yeah, that could be a position or a player they target at that position. Now, before we let you guys get back to sleep, or as you're just waking up maybe, let's just talk about round 1 for 2 to 3 minutes. I want to kind of start in reverse chronological order because that's like freshest in my brain. 49ers go Ricky Pearsall, Florida wide receiver, and now it looks like either Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk is going to get shipped off. It would be cool for the Browns to be a part of it, but I don't think the Browns are actually going to have a real interest in giving up more draft picks for another wide receiver. They've done 2 wide receiver trades in the last 2 years. I think they might sit this one out. But you can never rule Andrew Berry out for having an interest in a star player like a Deebo Samuel. So that's one possibility. I would not put a lot of stock into it. I think Samuel gets dealt over Ayuk, and I think Deebo would only go for about a 4th, maybe a 3rd highest. He's an aging guy, and he plays like Cam Newton. To me, teams may have concerns about long term. How about, as we fast forward back towards pick number 1, the Atlanta Falcons forgetting that they signed Kirk Cousins? That pick just made no sense to me. And here's the thing that I just fundamentally disagree with for Atlanta. They said, we're going to follow the Green Bay Packers model and take Jordan Love. I don't think you can compare the 2 models, and here's why. The Packers were picking at 26 when they took Love. It's not easy to find surefire things at 26. So if you miss out on Love, it's not the end of the world because it was a late first. If you miss out on Penix, you just lit a top 10 pick on fire. So I don't think you can compare the 2. Secondly, I know it's looking pretty good right now for Green Bay, but they passed on guys like T. Higgins. If T. Higgins was a Green Bay Packer and that helped Aaron Rodgers win a Super Bowl, I think they would go that route over picking Jordan Love. One Soupy for sure versus maybe one with Jordan Love. I'm not convinced that the Packers made the right decision. We'll never know based on what they could have gotten at 26 with other guys that were available that could have helped him win with Rodgers. But Atlanta just signed Kirk Cousins to a monster contract and then just picked for 2026. So round 1 filled with a lot of ups and downs for teams. No defensive players until Leatu Latu at the Indianapolis Colts at pick 15. I like the Brock Bowers selection a lot for the Raiders. It was not just like the safe pick, but it was like almost driving the green with a 5-iron. I mean, you weren't going to get in the woods no matter what. So a lot of picks I liked. I think I went 11 successful picks on my mock draft. I didn't get the right guys to the right team at the right pick number necessarily, but I got the right guys to the right team. I just didn't have them at the same exact number as how it actually went in the draft. So proud of myself, but we'll sign off, and then I'll see you all bright and early tomorrow for a day 2 mock draft. And then what I want to do is go live for the channel, go live for round 2. So make sure to stick around for our live coverage, depending on when you're watching this, in a few hours or in like 12 hours.